A man was dying in bed 4, and the doctor who could save him was too busy holding a millionaire's hand. A hospital monitor flatlines in a dark room, one red light pulsing on the wall. A hand slams a syringe against an 4 line, shaking. In 3 seconds she would push it, and in doing so, end her career, save a stranger's life, and summon the most powerful man on earth to a hospital hallway in Atlanta. But rewind 12 hours. Because before the President of the United States walked through those doors, this was just another Tuesday night. And nobody, not the doctor, not the administrator, not the rookie nurse herself, had any idea what was coming. Emory University Hospital. Cardiac ICU. 2:14 in the morning, the exact hour when the human body begs to shut down, and the exact hour when Chloe Hastings, 6 months out of nursing school, was fighting to keep her eyes open under the buzzing fluorescent lights of an empty hallway. She picked the night shift on purpose. Fewer administrators hovering. Fewer eyes watching her every move. She thought it would be quieter. She was about to be disastrously wrong. Bed 4 held a man the paramedics had simply logged as Henry. No wallet. No phone. No family waiting in the hallway. Just dirt-smudged jeans, scuffed work boots, and skin gone the color of ash, wheeled in an hour earlier after collapsing outside a diner. To the exhausted, cynical staff of the ICU, Henry was nothing. A transient. An uninsured burden nobody wanted to own. Dr. Reed Lawson, the attending on shift, gave him 30 seconds of attention before writing, mild arrhythmia, on the chart and walking away. Because Bed 1 had a real patient, apparently. A wealthy Atlanta developer, convinced his indigestion was a heart attack, sat up demanding a warmer blanket while flashing a gold watch, and Lawson, who spent more hours on the golf course than in journals, hovered over him like a man protecting a donation check with a pulse. Chloe couldn't let it go, though. Something about Henry gnawed at her. She lifted his wrist to check his pulse manually, old habits from nursing school, and that's when she saw it. A heavy, tarnished silver watch. Wedged beneath the strap, a faded medical alert tag. She squinted. Read it twice to be sure. Severe amiodarone allergy. Her stomach dropped. That single line was about to become the difference between life and death, and she hadn't even logged it into the system yet. That's when the monitor screamed. Henry's heart rhythm shattered into a twisting, chaotic ribbon of static, torsades de points, a lethal, fast collapsing rhythm that kills in minutes if nobody moves. Code Blue, Bed 4. Chloe's voice cracked through the hallway as she slammed the emergency button. She ripped the pillow from under his head, flattened the bed, and started compressions. Ribs cracked beneath her palms, a sound she'd never get used to, no matter how many times she heard it. "Where's Lawson?" she shouted at Sarah, another nurse, who came running with the crash cart. "Still in Bed 1, the developer's throwing a fit about his blood pressure cuff. I've paged him twice. Page him again. Tell him it's torsades." Standard protocol was clear: push amiodarone, charge the paddles, stabilize the rhythm. Sarah was already drawing it up. "No," Chloe gasped, dropping compressions just long enough to grab the paddles. "No amiodarone. He's got a medical alert tag. Severe allergy. It'll kill him faster than the arrhythmia will. We need magnesium sulfate. 2 grams for push. Now." Sarah froze, syringe hovering. "Chloe, we can't push that without an attending's direct order. It's completely off protocol. If we don't push it, he dies in 60 seconds. What she did in the next 90 seconds would end her career, or save the father of a president. She had no idea which one it would be yet. Sarah shook her head, panic in her eyes. "I can't, Chloe. It's my license." Chloe didn't wait for permission a second time. She dropped the paddle, snatched the vial herself, and with hands shaking harder than she'd ever admit, pushed the magnesium sulfate into Henry's line. Clear. The shock arched through him, lifting his body off the mattress. He slammed back down. The monitor kept screaming. "Come on, Henry," she whispered, resuming compressions. "Stay with me." 30 seconds. Then a beep. Then another. The chaos on the screen slowly folded itself back into a weak, steady rhythm. Henry gasped in a ragged breath. Alive. Chloe barely had time to feel relief before a voice exploded behind her. What the hell is going on in here? Dr. Lawson stood in the doorway, his face purple with rage, his eyes locking onto the empty vial discarded on the cart. Who authorized that push? Who authorized that push? Lawson's voice echoed down the hallway, drawing the attention of every nurse and orderly within earshot. Doctor, he went into torsades, Chloe said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the tremor still running through her hands. You weren't answering your pages. He has a severe allergy to amiodarone. I had to push the magnesium sulfate to stabilize his rhythm. You are a registered nurse, Hastings. Not a cardiologist. Lawson's words landed like a slap, loud enough to draw whispers from staff gathering near the nurse's station. You do not diagnose. You do not administer a restricted, off-protocol medication without my direct order. Do you have any idea what you've just done? I saved his life. Chloe shot back, exhaustion overriding every instinct that told her to stay quiet. If I'd waited for you to finish coddling a millionaire with heartburn, this man would be dead. The hallway went silent. Sarah stared at the floor, mortified. Lawson's eyes narrowed into something cold and vindictive. Get out, he hissed, pointing toward the door. Clock out. Go home. Don't come back. I'll be speaking to the chief of medicine and legal first thing in the morning. You're done, Hastings. You will never work in medicine again. Morning light sliced through the blinds of the administrator's office, illuminating dust drifting through the stale air. Chloe sat rigid in a leather chair, still in the same scrubs she'd left her apartment in 3 hours earlier. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the flatline. Across the desk sat Gregory Wallace, the hospital's chief administrator, flanked by a severe-looking hospital attorney and Dr. Lawson, who looked entirely too smug for a man who nearly let a patient die of neglect. Ms. Hastings, Wallace began, his voice devoid of warmth, as he opened a thick manila folder. The allegations against you aren't merely serious. They're catastrophic. Administering a restricted medication without physician approval is textbook malpractice. You bypassed the chain of command. You endangered this hospital's liability. I saved a man's life, Chloe said, her voice raspy but firm. He had a documented allergy. If I'd followed standard protocol, he'd be dead right now. That man is a John Doe, Lawson sneered, leaning back in his chair. A vagrant. And he's currently comatose on a ventilator. When his organs fail because of your reckless intervention, this hospital will be the one investigated, not you. The floor seemed to drop out from beneath her. He's comatose, Wallace said coldly. His condition deteriorated an hour after you left. His brain was deprived of oxygen during the arrest. And when the state board reviews this case, they'll see an unauthorized medication was pushed right before his decline. They were building a case against her. Chloe understood it with sickening clarity. Lawson had ignored the code. Henry's condition was failing. They needed someone to blame, and a 24-year-old rookie with no union backing and no lawyer was the easiest sacrifice on the table. Effective immediately, your employment at Emory University Hospital is terminated, Wallace said, snapping the folder shut. Your nursing license will be reported to the state board with a recommendation for permanent revocation. Security is waiting to escort you out. Tears burned at the corners of Chloe's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She stood, her legs feeling like lead, and looked at Lawson, already checking his phone, already dismissing her from his mind entirely. You're making a mistake, she said quietly. Not about firing me. About him. He matters just as much as your VIPs. Wallace didn't look up. Show yourself out, Ms. Hastings. The walk to her 10-year-old Honda in the employee lot was a blur. The Atlanta sun beat down on the asphalt, but Chloe felt frozen. 4 years of nursing school. $60,000 in debt. Sleep, relationships, her own health, all sacrificed because she wanted to heal people. And in 15 minutes, A room full of men protecting their own reputations had stripped it away. She sat behind the wheel, gripping it until her knuckles went white, and finally broke down sobbing in the suffocating silence of the car. She had no way of knowing that 2 miles away, the ground was already shifting beneath the hospital she'd just been thrown out of. At exactly 2 o'clock that afternoon, the automatic doors of the main entrance sealed shut. Brenda, the receptionist who'd worked the front desk for 20 years, looked up in shock as a dozen figures in dark tailored suits and earpieces strode into the lobby with terrifying precision. Behind them came tactical officers in vests marked with 3 letters that made her blood run cold. "Excuse me, you can't block the doors," she started. A man with a crew cut and ice-blue eyes flipped open a leather credential case without breaking stride. "Special Agent Vance. United States Secret Service, Presidential Protective Division. Who is the ranking administrator in this building?" Before Brenda could answer, the wail of police sirens swallowed the street outside. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, black Chevrolet Suburbans, police cruisers, and an armored limousine sealed off the entire block. On the 4th floor, Dr. Lawson was sipping an iced coffee when the elevator chimed. Instead of nurses, 6 Secret Service agents flooded the corridor. "Lock down this floor," the lead agent barked into his radio. "No one enters or exits without my clearance." Lawson's coffee shattered on the linoleum. "What is going on? This is a restricted ICU, you can't be up here." An older man in a $2,000 suit stepped out behind the agents, carrying himself with an authority that made the hallway feel smaller. "Are you Dr. Reed Lawson?" he asked, his voice deathly quiet. "Yes. And I demand to know." 30 minutes ago, the President of the United States received a call," the man interrupted, stepping close enough that Lawson had to lean back. "His father's distress beacon was activated. He lives off-grid, refuses Secret Service protection, wears a biometric tracker in his watch. We lost the signal last night. It re-engaged an hour ago, the moment someone finally plugged that watch in to charge it." Lawson's mind refused to process the words. "Where is he?" the man demanded. The blood drained from Lawson's face as his memory snapped to the old man in the flannel shirt. "The transient. Bed 4. Bed 4. Lawson stammered, his knees suddenly weak. At that exact moment, a distant, earth-shaking rumble rolled across the Atlanta skyline, the sound of 4 massive jet engines beginning their descent toward Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Air Force One had just entered its final approach. The man they'd dismissed as a worthless vagrant, the man they'd fired Chloe Hastings for saving, was the president's father. Panic gripped the 4th floor as agents secured every exit. Hospital Administrator Gregory Wallace felt his knees buckle beneath his tailored suit. Beside him, Dr. Reed Lawson, moments ago the undisputed king of the ICU, stood sweating through his shirt, his expensive stethoscope trembling against his chest. Neither man could speak. The reality of their situation was settling over them like a suffocating weight. The worthless vagrant they'd written off was Andrew Caldwell, the fiercely reclusive father of President Jonathan Caldwell. "I need the attending physician to step forward immediately," demanded Thomas Hayes, the White House Chief of Staff, his voice slicing through the silence. "And I want the complete medical chart. Every piece of telemetry data. Every pharmacy log from the moment he crossed that threshold." Lawson swallowed hard, his throat like sandpaper. "I'm Dr. Lawson. I'm the attending. Mr. Caldwell was brought in with a cardiac arrhythmia. We stabilized him." "Did you?" The elevator chimed again. The air in the hallway seemed to vanish entirely. Flanked by 4 Secret Service agents, President Jonathan Caldwell stepped onto the floor. The Commander-in-Chief looked nothing like the composed statesman from the news. His tie was loosened, his jaw clenched tight, his eyes carrying the frantic look of a terrified son. Behind him walked Dr. Harrison Mitchell, the lead physician of the White House Medical Unit, a secure tablet tucked under his arm. "Where is my father?" the president demanded, his voice a low, commanding rumble that left no room for hesitation. "Right this way, Mr. President." Wallace stammered, nearly tripping over his own feet as he led the most powerful man in the world down the corridor. The president stepped into the small glass-walled room. Andrew Caldwell lay pale and still, tethered to a ventilator and a web of 4 lines. The steady beep of the monitor was the only sound. The president reached out, taking his father's weathered hand in both of his, and bowed his head, breathing hard. Outside, Dr. Mitchell wasted no time. He commandeered the nurse's station, pulling up the digital logs. Lawson hovered nearby, desperate to control the story now unraveling in front of him. "As you can see, doctor, the patient experienced torsades de pointes," Lawson said, forcing an air of professional calm. "Severe ventricular tachycardia. We intervened immediately and restored sinus rhythm." Mitchell's eyes moved across the screen with terrifying speed, the medication record, then the intake photos, zooming in on a tarnished silver watch and the medical alert tag beneath it. He turned slowly, his expression freezing over. "You restored sinus rhythm?" "Yes, of course." Lawson lied smoothly, banking on his title to protect him. "Aggressive intervention was required." "Fascinating," Mitchell said, venom dripping from the word. He turned the monitor so the chief of staff and administrator could see. "Because according to the badge swipes and the pharmacy logs, you were in bed 1 for 45 straight minutes, managing a minor gastrointestinal complaint. You ignored 3 separate emergency pages from this exact nursing station." Lawson's face lost all color. "I was managing another complex case." "Quiet." Mitchell's finger jabbed at the screen. "The patient went into lethal cardiac arrest. Standard protocol for torsades is a massive push of amiodarone. If that had been administered, Andrew Caldwell would have gone into anaphylactic shock and died within 2 minutes, because of a severe, documented allergy. But amiodarone wasn't pushed. 2 grams of magnesium sulfate was administered instead. Off protocol. Brilliant. The only reason the president's father is breathing right now." Mitchell looked directly into Lawson's eyes. "So I'll ask you again, doctor. Did you save his life?" "Because the system shows the medication was accessed and administered by a registered nurse. Chloe Hastings." The silence that followed was absolute. President Caldwell stepped out of his father's room, having heard every word. His gaze fell on Wallace, then on Lawson. "I want to see her," the president said, his voice dangerously calm. "I want to personally thank the nurse who saved my father's life." Wallace began to hyperventilate. He looked at Lawson, then down at his own polished shoes. "Mr. President, Nurse Hastings is no longer on the premises." The president's eyes narrowed. "Then get her back here." I can't." The full weight of his own decision was crashing down on Wallace in real time. "Dr. Lawson reported her for gross malpractice. She administered the medication without his verbal order. We terminated her employment 30 minutes ago. Her license has already been reported to the state board, for permanent revocation." The color drained from the president's face, and in its place rose something far more dangerous. He stepped toward the hospital administrator, his presence filling the entire hallway. "Let me make sure I understand you correctly, Mr. Wallace." His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more weight than a shout, enough to make even the Secret Service agents shift their stance. "My father was dying. Your attending physician ignored the emergency calls. A rookie nurse diagnosed the problem, recognized a fatal allergy, bypassed your red tape, and saved his life. And your response was to destroy her career to protect the man who nearly killed him. Protocol dictates," Wallace tried to say. "Protocol?" The president's voice cracked through the corridor like a whip, making everyone flinch. "Your protocol nearly killed my father." Hayes stepped forward instantly. "Yes, Mr. President. Get the FBI down here to secure these medical records," Caldwell ordered, never breaking eye contact with Wallace. "Before these 2 cowards find a way to alter them. Then find Chloe Hastings. I don't care where she is. Send my personal detail to get her." Across town, in a cramped, sun-baked apartment, Chloe Hastings sat on her bedroom floor, eyes swollen and red, surrounded by cardboard boxes. She was folding her scrubs with mechanical precision, the kind of motion people make when their hands need something to do so their minds don't collapse. Her framed nursing degree, 4 years of her youth, $60,000 of debt, lay face down on the mattress beside her. She'd already started scrolling through retail job listings on her phone. Without a license, she was finished. The board investigation would bankrupt her before she ever got the chance to defend herself. She picked up her stethoscope, tracing the cold metal chest piece with her thumb, and a fresh wave of tears blurred her vision. She had done the right thing. She knew it in her bones. But the system had never cared about right. Only about liability. Only about hierarchy. A sharp, authoritative knock shattered the silence of the apartment. Chloe froze. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and crept to the door, looking through the peephole. 2 men in immaculate dark suits and earpieces stood in her dim hallway. One held up a leather badge case, a gold star catching the light. She cracked the door open, cautious. "Yes? Chloe Hastings?" the taller agent asked, his tone respectful but firm. "I'm Agent Miller, United States Secret Service. We have a motorcade waiting outside. The President of the United States is requesting your immediate presence at Emory University Hospital." Chloe stopped breathing. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. The President? There has to be a mistake. I was just fired from there. I'm not even allowed on the premises." The agent offered a small, reassuring smile. "I promise you, no one in that building is going to stop you from walking through those doors. Please come with us." 20 minutes later, Chloe stepped out of a black SUV beneath the hospital awning, red and blue lights washing across the glass facade. Flanked by agents, she walked back through the same lobby she'd been escorted out of that morning in tears. The front desk staff stared in disbelief as she was walked straight onto the 4th floor. Near the nurses' station, Dr. Lawson and Gregory Wallace stood surrounded by federal agents, looking like prisoners awaiting sentencing. Lawson couldn't even meet her eyes. He stared at the floor, stripped of every ounce of arrogance he'd worn like armor that morning. Dr. Harrison Mitchell approached first, extending his hand. "Nurse Hastings. I'm Dr. Mitchell. I've reviewed your telemetry logs and your medication record. Your decision to push magnesium sulfate instead of amiodarone, under the pressure of a full arrest, with no attending support, is one of the most brilliant pieces of clinical instinct I have ever seen. You are a credit to this profession." Chloe shook his hand, still numb with shock. "Thank you, doctor. I just read his tag. Something Dr. Lawson never bothered to do." A deep voice resonated behind her. She turned. President Jonathan Caldwell stepped forward, bypassing any formal greeting, taking both of her hands in his and gripping them with raw, unguarded gratitude. "Miss Hastings," he said softly, his eyes shining. "That stubborn old man in bed 4 is my father. He means the world to me. And because you were willing to risk everything you had to do what was right, I get to see him open his eyes again." "He's awake?" Chloe gasped, the weight of the entire day lifting off her chest at once. "Wide awake. And already complaining about the hospital food." The president's smile broke through. "He wants to meet the girl who broke his ribs and saved his life." Chloe let out a breathless, tearful laugh, relief crashing over her in waves she didn't know she'd been holding back. The president's gaze shifted to Wallace, the warmth vanishing instantly. "Mr. Wallace? My chief of staff has already contacted the state medical board. The fraudulent complaint against Nurse Hastings has been expunged, entirely. The board will now be opening an immediate, exhaustive investigation into Dr. Lawson's license, and into this hospital's administrative practices." Wallace opened his mouth to protest. Hayes cut him off before a single word came out. "Security is by the elevator. Both of you are suspended, pending the federal investigation. Clear out your lockers." Lawson finally looked up, his arrogance gone, replaced by the slow, crushing realization that his career was over. Federal agents stepped forward and escorted both men off the floor, past the staff who had watched them build a case against her that morning, and would now watch them leave in disgrace. The president turned back to Chloe, warmth returning to his face. "Ms. Hastings, Dr. Mitchell tells me the White House Medical Unit is always looking for people who can perform under pressure like that. If you're interested, there's a position waiting in Washington. Full clearance. Full benefits. And you will never have to worry about a corrupt doctor threatening your license again. Chloe glanced toward the glass room where Andrew Caldwell was resting, then back to the president. The despair of the morning was gone completely, replaced by something fiercer, something that felt, for the first time in her life, like being seen. I would be honored, Mr. President. She smiled. But first, I need to go check my patient's vitals. She walked back into that ICU not as the nurse they'd fired that morning, but as the one-person power itself couldn't afford to ignore. And somewhere in Washington, a file was already being opened with her name on it. Integrity is doing the right thing even when it threatens everything you've built. Chloe's split-second decision against a broken system didn't just save a man's life, it changed hers forever. True heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear scrubs, and they're the only ones in the room willing to read the tag nobody else bothered to check. If this story of justice and medical courage moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who works in healthcare, and subscribe, because Chloe's story isn't the last one like it we're going to tell.